and welcome to Load Bearing Beams, the podcast about movies and marriages. I'm the groom, Matt Stokes.
Father of the bride and now a daddy? Oh, I didn't hear that. This is Lacey Roth. The top of the podcast is when I do my impressions.
Is that okay?
It's Frank.
What is Frank? What is his ethnicity?
Well,
is he just being German?
When he gives the Vosnik to Stanley, George Stanley Banks, he says what he is because that's where his pills are from, right?
And he says Germany, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, because you're going to be
I
doing
can
that.
do-
You're going to
No,
be doing that
I'm not-
impression a lot, and I just
No.
want to make sure.
I'm not going to do it again.
You know, the early '90s were not the most culturally sensitive time.
Agreed.
As
And
we
I
see
make
in
sure-
Eugene Levy's performance as the vaguely Middle Eastern businessman.
Oh, yeah, good point there.
Yes. Okay. Movies and
Way to shame something I didn't do wrong.
marriages. Sorry?
I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything wrong, my
I made sure
love.
it was a white okay.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to say that up at the top because most of this podcast is going to be about Martin Short's character Frank.
It's I promise you it will not be.
Frankcast. Okay. Can you give the premise of our podcast?
Yeah, but are you then going to give it again? Or can I just do it?
I'm going to try not to.
Okay. Okay. Load-bearing beam. The idea is there are movies. Maybe it's a generational thing, but when we're in our 30s, when we were kids, limited access to movies, so there was a lot of repetition. So Load-bearing beam is a movie you've seen a lot and either through repetition has become part of your DNA or because it struck a nerve, it did something and you connected to it for some other kind of elevated reason. Not because it's a good movie, but because it felt right. So, however, that impression it gives you is just, that was a great movie, even if you haven't seen it in years. The idea of the load-bearing beam is it got you at a point where it became the essence of you, and you're stuck liking it. So you're going to show this to a significant other because you've been repping for it for forever, and you assume it's good, but, probably not, because nostalgia is stupid. It makes everything greater than it is and more important than it is. And so you show your mate this movie and you just hope to God you're cool at the end of it.
Sometimes you remain cool. Sometimes you're proven right.
Sometimes you're a badass young person.
Sometimes you're
mostly
wrong. But you know what's funny is with many of the movies we've discussed, and I have a just weird photographic cataloging brain where I always remember what I think of movies, but there are movies that we've discussed on this podcast that you've picked that we'll watch and then we'll discuss and be like, boy, that sure does suck. And then like 6 months later, I'll bring it up and I'll be like, hey, remember that movie that we watched that sucked? And you'll be like, that movie's great.
I reset. Yeah, it's foundational.
Yeah.
Even if you explain to me, hey, look, this beam, it's rotted to the core. Well, bitch, it's still there. What are you going to do?
Not even that it was explained to you, but that you yourself said, I have decided Hook is a shitty movie. But then a year later, you're like, Hook is lovely.
I don't think I'd call it lovely.
With the skateboarders and stuff.
Anyway, yeah, that's the essence of what makes it. You reset because it's foundational. So you go and expose your freaking beams and walls and whatever, and you hope that your significant other, in this case my husband, doesn't think you are infested with termites. I don't know, because what the fuck?
Yeah.
Here's my beams.
Yeah.
I keep calling it a beam.
It's a beam.
It's a beam.
It's a beam.
Think it was a
as
wall.
we pointed out before, it's more of a load-bearing wall, but that's not as... We're not changing the podcast name. And also,
it's load-bearing.
Welcome to Load-Bearing Walls.
It was already a stretch of a name of a podcast.
I love the name. I think it's perfect. When you said, as we sat in Chuck E. Cheese together, and you explained that Dirty Dancing is a load-bearing beam and you can't remove it from your house, I was like, whoa.
This is castable.
And I got down on one knee and I said, Lacey,
are you going to eat the rest of that pizza?
And she said yes.
Okay.
And I was like, fuck.
Oh, you're making a marriage because of the theme.
Yeah. We're married. So we're married to each other and we talk about these movies together. And this episode, we are doing a movie or two movies of Lacey's Father of the Bride from 1991. And Father of the Bride Part 2 from 1995.
Fathers of the Bride.
Fathers of the Brides.
Shit. Fathers of the Brides.
There we go.
There, I've done it.
Now, don't you hold Part 2? Part 2 is your real load-bearing beam, would you say?
And yes, and I proclaimed that in in the episode where we discussed parenthood, I think. Doesn't matter. But I've second-guessed myself because I have a theory about trilogies where the second one just it holds the sweet spot, so I will default to thinking the second one's the best of anything, even if it's not a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, the second one was by far my favorite, but I had no confidence in that until we watched both of them and realized.
But you insisted we needed to watch both. We
Because
needed to watch
I
Part
knew
1
the second
too.
one was more fun.
But that you couldn't just jump in to the second one. You had to know the first one.
Don't you think?
I don't
Could
know.
you have possibly
I
appreciated the
I think
masterpiece?
yes. I think you could very easily, because I don't want to. We'll go in.
Okay,
we'll
how
go in
about
order.
this?
We'll talk about Part 1, then we'll talk about
How
Part
about
2.
this? You have love and affection for one movie just as it is, even though you don't realize it's crap compared to what they might make later, and then they double the fun in the second one. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I gave me an appreciation for the first one because you gotta get through the sap to get to the crap.
To the syrup.
Ew.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So Father of the Bride Part 1. Father of the Bride is came out in 1991, and it was directed by Charles Shire, written by Nancy Meyer. Just some quick info about those two. They are a married couple. They're
Crazy
kind of the
kids.
original Matt and Lacey.
They're still married?
They're no longer married,
Oh.
but they were, they had a business together where they'd make movies together.
Where the husband was oppressive?
Like with them, the wife was way more talented than the husband. But so Charles was the director, Nancy was the writer. They were both producers, and they did movies like Private Benjamin, Baby Boom, Irreconcilable Differences.
Oh.
And then in the late 90s, Nancy started directing her own movies, and a few pretty great movies like Something's Gotta Give, and one of my favorite movies of recent years, The Intern. Just a sweet, darling movie.
And say it isn't so? It's complicated? It's complicated.
She did It's Complicated, that's right.
Just basically house porn. I mean, she is a home and garden come to life. Her movies, I would have never known at the time or even now realize, but it's like I get to both watch, a real estate show and a movie. Mm-hmm. I love looking at homes I can't afford.
Which is very much a Nancy Meyer thing, especially kitchens. But you also, that's all over Father of the Bride.
Yes.
And
In charming neighborhoods.
and
paneling.
and paneling.
Well, trim.
What do you mean?
Just trim, just extra trim in houses. Trim it up. She's very upper middle class, but she has a bit of a smugness toward anything much more rich than right there. She has a sweet spot. Anyone richer than the star is typically eccentric or like too business,
Too stuck up.
too career focused.
Interesting.
A lot of her characters own their own business, but they're cool about it, or have a thing that they do from home.
Yeah, in her movies, like Diane Keaton in Something's Gotta Give is playing Nancy Myers essentially, but she's a playwright. Meryl Streep in It's Complicated owns a bakery.
Right.
Anne Hathaway in The Intern owns a website.
In Father of the Brides, both of them, the mother owns a business. You don't even get a glimpse of it till the second one, and it's for a second. I mean, you could not tell she ran anything.
Can I say something? Can I ask you something?
I wish you
Because
would.
we were discussing this off air, which we should never do, but
No.
we were discussing this last night.
all gold.
And I said the Bankses are a middle class family, and you said they are not middle class. And
I said they're upper middle class.
okay, but upper middle class is part of the middle class, and it's this weird thing where I think movies, especially movies made by really wealthy people, code middle class a certain way, where they're actually would be technically like wealthy. They would typically would be in the upper class. They own like a mansion. But I think that we are supposed to read these characters as solidly upper middle class, not anything more.
The more I watch the movies that now for me, I'm thinking because she can't help but be autobiographical. I hope I'm using that right. I think maybe in her life that period for her when she was making that amount of wealth must have been her sweet spot, because she never goes lower, and higher is always when you start to see the gross parts of people and the bad. So I'm wondering if it's like the more wealth she obtained, the shittier her feelings about herself or the people around her got. I don't know. But she has a very Leave It to Beaver kind of sentimentality about what it is to be a well-off-ish, but not too much. You still got to be humble. Where your sidekicks.
Well, because I don't think she would. Are we meant to think of this family as rich?
I always have.
But do you think we're supposed to? Because I don't.
I mean, he often. It just depends on what George's mood is. You go from, he goes, look at this dump, and then it's a so beautiful palace. You know, if one more thing goes wrong with this house, and then it's raining in their kitchen in a second-story house, which I don't understand how that could happen. So they swing it both ways, but I don't think for a second. Look at his car. That car, there's nothing about it that reads not rich.
But I sort of think that's there's a Hollywoodization of middle-class people that makes them look more wealthy than the actual middle class is. Why would they choose that
car? A car that most people would not even know what kind it is. It just
because he
imported.
does well and he treated himself. I don't know. There's no way to resolve this.
The house has a banister you can slide down and not fall off.
But I think in the same way that like Kevin McAllister's house is huge, but the movie
they're
is not
rich. You know how much money they paid for pizza?
The movie is not saying
they go to Paris
they're rich.
for 2 weeks for fucking Christmas. What do you think they're saying? What kind of this is the difference in our upbringings. It's why this movie speaks to me. Because you don't think you're rich, but your house, if it were on TV, you were supposed to be pretty well off.
We would have been coded middle class and
upper.
Yes. Okay, listen.
There's a fucking difference. I grew up not underneath the poverty line or anything. I never qualified for any kind of a government assistance, which my mom never let me forget that she always made too much to get any help and too little to actually get anything done or not be broke. So maybe her constant reminding me of this shit place we were in. I knew we were quote unquote middle, but we were bottom rung fucking middle, meaning stuck.
Middle class is a fluid and ambiguous term. It encompasses a lot of things.
That's why I don't like you using it that way. I don't think you can just classify what I was and what you were growing up as the same thing. They're not.
Well, I know. I wasn't saying they're the same.
That's what you're doing when you tell me that that upper middle is the same as middle. It's fucking
I'm not saying it's the same. I'm saying though that I don't think it is Nancy Meyers and Charles Shires and the film's position that these are rich people.
Okay,
I think they're well-off people. But I think that the real life, because how is it different?
They don't have.
There's a rich elite that they do not belong to.
Sure, and she makes sure to show you what that looks like in the in-laws' house. They have. What did Adam Carolla used to call it? There's fuck you money and there's fuck me money. What's the difference? Anyway, but in the 90s, if you cared about weddings at all, or you had recently gone through one or been with someone who did, you're aware of what things cost. So you have to be able to bite off both that George Banks can afford it in some fashion, but it's going to hurt. So she's got to be straddling something. They couldn't have been any less well off than they were, or you can't buy hiring Franck.
No, yes, I get all that, and the movie has no time to actually examine hard choices that you actually have to make. Could this actually hurt us financially? Is this going to change the way we live? Are we going to have to make sacrifices and adjust our lifestyles? And I'm sorry if I'm not explaining this well. I just think, especially in the 90s, lifestyles were portrayed unrealistically. The characters in Friends would have to be fucking rich as shit to live the lives they actually did. But Friends, the TV show, does not present itself as these are rich people.
No, not at all. It's like they just needed the camera space to work inside the room.
And that's what I mean. That
I get that. But then they would have, for these movies, they would have made different choices as far as the lawn, the cars, the clothes they wore, how big his factory is the fact that some other person knew what a sidekick was, which are his shoes that he makes, I in no way think he's supposed to seem not well off. It's just normal middle class. Just not normal.
Okay.
I'm saying the middle is huge.
Yes, and I'm saying there's sort of a normal upper middle class Hollywood character. We don't have to keep going around and
Thank
around on this.
fucking Christ.
I want to ask you a question. It's going
Wait.
to enrage you. It's going to.
It is.
This question is going to make you fucking fall out of your chair.
Okay.
Okay, so brace yourself.
Done.
What is your history with this movie?
Oh, I really thought you were going to say something else. All right. Anyway, when it came out, I started watching it, watched it with my cousins. It's very quotable because of Frank, and some Steve Martin stuff. I realized why I was drawn to it, watching it as an adult. It was aspirational. It's what I thought other people had, and it looked obtainable. It wasn't too far out of reach, but like, they were just so well adjusted. Their problems were so cute. The whole time I was watching it the other night, I was thinking, this isn't white people problems, though it is. It's well-adjusted people problems. These people have never gone to a therapist, and they seem like they were loved, and they seem like they loved their children. And so what you get is a big kerfuffle about Annie's big promotion and how her husband didn't take it seriously, and he just really wants to be with the family and not, but they fight for a whole 20 minutes, and then it ends in like, I'm so sorry, I'm a fucking moron, you're it's just, none of it's realistic, none of it's relatable. So I realized I didn't like this movie because I was relating to it. I liked the movie because it was aspirational.
We did an episode on Parenthood. That was another of your movies, and that had Steve Martin, and it kind of has a lot of the same DNA. And I had the same critiques about that movie, where none of the problems seem very real, and none of the problems, the movie doesn't give any of these problems any actual attention or weight, and all of these problems are fixed by two people having a fake conversation, coming to a fake understanding, and then that's it.
This is where we always differ. You are always critiquing based on this movie was not a good move. Like, you're always wanting to make it better, where the whole reason I liked it was because it was easy. I didn't want to see real problems and real struggle. That wouldn't have become a load-bearing beam for me. That would have been too heavy. What I needed was eye candy that made me feel hopeful.
Well, yeah, I know, but
and that moved.
That's the why we have this podcast.
I'm just saying, you're always saying, here's how it could have been better. Well, fine. If you would have turned it into the movie you really thought could be interesting, and you made that point the other night, it would have never been a load-bearing beam for me. Yeah. So we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Well,
Thanks for erasing my past.
So much say it. I should critique it for what it is rather than for what I think it should be.
Right, you're always trying to rewrite it.
I don't.
Yes, you are.
Not necessarily.
Because you're a writer, maybe. I don't know. Or
I can say that things aren't working for me, and then I present a fake alternative as a way to sort of like demonstrate what doesn't work.
I know it's not fair, because when I'm watching your movies, I'm thinking, this could have been better. Because I don't have nostalgia for it, so I have to. And you don't have nostalgia for this, so I don't. Yeah, I'm literally arguing away the fabric of our podcast. Okay, I'm sorry.
So that's it?
About what?
The podcast is over.
No. Was I supposed to talk about my history with this movie?
Yeah.
Mainly, it was we owned it, and me and my cousins all liked it, and we watched it over and over, and we liked to quote it. It's kind of the same story every time. There's no big emotional attachment as far as like how it made me feel as a person. It's just something. If anyone ever brought it up, I'd be like, yes, you're my people.
Was its appeal for you that it was funny or that it was heartwarming?
Oh, funny. Oh, the heartwarming parts bother me. They always have.
They bothered you when you were a kid?
Overly emotional. Yeah, the sentimentality. This is my little girl. This is my baby. Let's play basketball. All that.
I guess for people who haven't seen the movie, the
play
premise
basketball
is
a lot.
Steve Martin. He's married to Diane Keaton. He has a daughter played by Kimberly Williams. She is 24 years old, and she is going to get married to a guy they haven't met, but then they meet him. Seems like a nice guy, but Steve Martin's like, I don't know. But then
he seems like the nicest.
But then they have a wedding, and Steve Martin's kind of stressed out about the wedding, but learns that he needs to just go along to get along. And then they have the wedding, and he really wants to be special for his daughter. And
he really is into his daughter.
He's very into his daughter.
That's
the movie puts a lot of work into showing you how special daddy-daughter stuff is.
Well, and their special bond, and yeah, okay, I will.
Am I allowed to say that I don't think the movie does enough work to show that their relationship is real or meaningful?
I mean, you're allowed to say whatever the fuck you want if you want to be wrong.
But you don't like when I say that. You think they have a good little realistic
Realistic. No, nothing about the movie's realistic.
Okay, but do they seem to have a real relationship?
Yeah, all the basketball.
I'm seriously asking you a
I
question.
mean it. I'm saying, as a person who never did any sports with her father, all of the time he puts into wanting to just get her attention and play basketball, it seems like she has him wrapped around her finger, but she doesn't seem to be exploiting it. She doesn't seem selfish. It seems genuinely mutual and gross.
Why?
I just don't like that.
What do you mean?
I don't want them to be shitty to each other. I like when people like each other. Just all the daddy, that's my little girl stuff. That's always like, no, that's not your little girl. You don't own girls. No one does. That's
always problematic.
It's all, yeah. But even before I knew why
until you're ready for
me,
sexual maturity, and I present you to another family in exchange
for a goat. The giving away of a woman. That all of that bothered me before I knew why, or why it should culturally bother people anyway. But yeah, it just felt very like kept. Like this is a tiny thing I keep safe, not because it's a baby or small, but because it's a girl. And no matter how big this thing gets, it still has that vagina. So I'm going to keep pretending it's mine and that it doesn't know what it's doing.
I watched the original version of this. This is a remake of a 1950 movie with
that
Spencer
blew my mind.
Tracy and Elizabeth Taylor.
I had no idea.
Which we watched about 20 minutes of before Lacey bailed.
No, all right, you bailed.
And
you
then
said, let's go on Stranger Things.
I finished it on my own. I had seen it. I saw it in high school. I'd never seen the remake, but I had fond memories of the original. The movie ends with Spencer Tracy solemnly saying, "As they say, a daughter's a daughter. No, a son is a son until he takes a wife. A daughter's a daughter for the rest of her life."
Gross,
and then the music swells, and it's like, oh, that's so great, and then the movie ends. And
glad I didn't finish watching that.
That's a pretty fucked up sentiment.
But it captures exactly the tone of the whole fucking problem of the 20 minutes I saw. The thing that movie did better, there was some heaviness. The father actually seems tired, where Steve Martin is saying he's tired. That man never loses energy. It's the thing you pointed out in the Parenthood episode 2. He keeps saying he's tired, but he's fucking jumping, jacking all over the goddamn place because that's not his personality. He's supposed to be tired dad, but that character...
I don't buy him as dad, period.
I disagree there because I don't buy him as a love interest, except for when he's much older in the It's Complicated movie.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he needs to work with a good director. But between this and Parenthood, like, I just don't think I like Steve Martin. I don't dislike Steve Martin, but if you said to me, let's watch this movie, Steve Martin's in it, I'd be like, hey, you're going to have to tell me, you're going to have to win me over with more than that.
And I was trying to think, well, what's a movie I could point you to like sell you on Steve Martin, because I've always loved him.
Planes, Trains. That's the only one I can think of.
No, I don't like him in that one.
You don't?
I don't remember liking him in that one. I have only seen it once. Wasn't one of my movies.
Uh-huh. But
I don't like when he's nervous. I like when he's fun.
It seemed for a minute like Father of the Bride was going to be about Steve Martin realizing he's like the villain, like realizing that he's the problem, that he's being unreasonable, his attachment to his daughter is problematic, and he can afford all this, so why is he giving his family such a hard time?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It goes away from that pretty quickly, and then just, here's our wedding. Let's hire a wedding planner.
It's all just porn for the eyeballs for girls who want to see what is that going to look like.
So you're also not going to like when I say that I don't think that the Martin Short character, when he shows up in the movie,
Frank,
and he plays
Frank.
Okay, but it's basically like an SNL, it's like Dana Carvey.
I needed him
coming into the movie and playing Garth. Like the tone is so weird in this very, very classical, sappy.
It's so hard to
comedy
to separate. Yeah, the sap needed some. That
no,
it did not.
A movie, a realistic movie getting invaded by a sketch character is so jarring.
Okay.
And the fact that you've seen it a million times, so that's just what the movie is.
I can't. Yeah, the two, one could not exist without the other. I feel like I only was waiting for Frank parts.
Okay.
Again, this happens over and over. I realize I must just go. I must just power down, and then I boot right back up when like my little lily pads of love come. I approach them like, I like this part. Now I go to sleep. Oh, I like that part.
I don't want to be a fucking grump about about all of your movies.
I'll stop picking bad ones.
I hated Parenthood. I fucking hated Parenthood, and I didn't hate this movie, but I didn't like this movie.
Well, you keep calling it. Are we only talking about one? Because I feel like
yes.
we're talking about both. At
We're
the
only
same
talking
time.
about one.
Oh, you didn't hate one? I thought for sure you hated it.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it, and I kept like having to pause and say to you, like, people like this, or like this is like a touchstone for people because it's so nothing.
I don't know. It's touchstone for me in my bubble, and I can't say what it is outside of that. What is it on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't fucking know. And you say it was like 50?
The sequel was, I think, 48. I didn't look up.
The sequel's that's a goddamn travesty.
I didn't look it up.
Certified fresh.
Okay, so I felt like while we were watching the movie, you were much more on my side about not liking it, but here you're much.
No, I completely don't like it.
You don't like it.
Not the first one. No, but I will never remember that after this conversation.
I'm looking it up on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It has a 70%.
The
on
first
Rotten
one?
Tomatoes. The first one does.
What about the second one?
48.
That's fucked right up the bride hole. That doesn't make sense.
The original, which again I've then finished watching by myself.
From the
the original's not great, but it is better.
Wait, 1950.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's tonally more consistent. It doesn't have any of the sappiness in it. It's more of a straightforward, not slapstick comedy, but just sort of an observational comedy about a dad who seems a little out of time while the world is moving on without him. Which that is one part of the interesting version of this movie I could see is not understanding this world of weddings at all, where everyone you talk to seems to know so much more than you and says like, yeah, that's what it costs, and you should be grateful that it costs that much because it could cost so much more. And you're like, what? Okay.
Geese aren't even in season.
And in 1950, this was a real thing because big weddings were sort of new, both because of
big $1,000 weddings.
Yeah, because both World War II pushed down the average age of marriage, which was interesting.
Yeah.
In 1900, the average age of a bride was 22, and then in 1950,
we got to
it was
get those
20.
benefits of the GI who dies, right? Is that
right,
why?
Right.
Yeah.
And big weddings were becoming something that the middle class could do. And to Spencer Tracy's character, it's like when we got married, we literally got married in our front yard. And his big thing is like, a church? You don't get married in a church. What are we, the Rockefellers?
The high end? Is that the big ticket
It's
item?
like the big high end thing. And then there's sort of a central set piece where they do the rehearsal, and like the comedically uncaring character is the Reverend, who like just does this all the time, and he like doesn't know anybody's names, and he's screwing everything up, and everything looks bad, and he's like, it's fine, it's fine.
That's actually the most realistic part of this.
Yeah.
For funerals and weddings.
Whereas Father of the Bride 1990,
there's no Reverend. There's no ceremony.
No, and there's no real critique of the wedding industrial complex.
I like that it's a movie all about a wedding, and you see none of it. You just see the aftermath. You see the before, and then the after. There's no like.
No, they have the. I knew I had my one word that I was supposed to say. I do. They show you that.
I don't remember it.
See when he walks his
but
daughter.
But they don't show you vows.
And he was.
Do they show you vows?
Overwhelmed by his daughter.
Do they show you vows?
No, they show you the moment where it's who gives this.
Yeah,
who gives this goat to this family.
Right.
A surprising amount of the remake was taken directly from a lot of the jokes. I guess the thing I was most struck by is there didn't seem to have been much that changed between 1990 and 1950.
Was much that changed about the movie or about weddings?
About weddings and about the jokes that the movie literally made. But fuck it. We can talk about Father of the Bride 2 now.
You're not right.
I'm not right.
You said they spent $1,000 in 1950, which translates to $15,000, right? With inflation.
Adjusted for inflation, $1,000 was $11,000.
Okay, I was way off.
And
then in 90, assuming he spent $150,000. Adjusted for inflation.
1990 to.
It doesn't even matter. I'd say 11,000 is less than 150,000.
No. The average. Okay, so he spent 11,000. Spencer Tracy spends 11,000.
I got that. I'm talking about the.
Yes, I'm trying. Yes, I just want to make sure everything's You know what you're talking about.
That's
The people
true.
listening to this may not. A lot of numbers
In
being
the
thrown around.
remake, which happened in 1991, Father of the Bride, Uno, he spends at least $150,000.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah.
you would agree, even not adjusted for inflation, is a whole lot more than
Yeah,
11,000.
thank you. Yes,
You
I'm not
said
saying the
not
cost.
a lot had changed.
No, in the movies themselves, the problems that they deal with.
Oh. You need to get better at talking. By the 90s, weddings started to be a much bigger affair, but the jokes made in the movie did not shift, so it didn't
Both the
quite
jokes
fit.
and the conflicts, and sort of just the social conventions. In both movies, it's a big deal that the daughter's getting married so young.
Right. And the age shifts about
In both
3
movies,
years?
it's like,
4?
how do we don't even know this guy. Like, there's no... You could have set the 1990 movie in 1950 and nothing would have been jarring about it other than the dollar figures, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But then there's another like interesting thread that the movie gets at for a second and then abandons, is like, what do you do when you're an adult, when you're a parent and your grown child comes to you and says something that you think is probably going to be wrong?
You're
A
never
wrong
going to talk
decision.
I mean, it seems like a tale as old as time. They're trying to talk a young person in love that out of doing something like getting married or having a baby.
Especially when you yourself did the same thing.
Exactly.
2020, the average cost of a wedding is, what would you guess that it is?
Well, now that they're front yard weddings only, I'd say it's gone down a lot.
It's 2019.
Okay, 2019. Did you tell? Is it 35,000 or something crazy?
35,000.
That's
yeah,
insane.
is the average cost.
Whoa! It's a year's salary for some people.
And well, in 1990 it was 15,000. That's
The
roughly
average?
yeah,
Okay.
the average.
Oh,
cost.
well then think about that movie. Then he spent astronomically
yeah.
more than he should. So I mean, by no stretch of the imagination is he not supposed to be kind of rich.
But there is this thing about weddings where I read this. I was just reading like sort of social history of weddings last night, and there was this quote. Let me see if I can find it because it was so good. It was like, it's like theme parks for middle class people where they get to pretend to be wealthy.
Yes.
They get to pretend that they do these sorts of things all the time.
Well, actually, when you were explaining how all of a sudden this became a thing for the middle class, just light bulb moment. Of course, there were only royal weddings before, big affairs, things that were made the newspaper. That's why it's even a thing that you put your engagement in a newspaper.
Yeah.
They're just mimicking what rich people
Yep.
did because it was an actual news.
And
It was,
then this kind of
we're
caused
going to buy an ad.
a backlash in the wealthy class who are then like, well, fuck, we have to make our weddings even more spectacular.
Yeah, because we have to legit make the news now, more than just the fact that we had a big thing other people don't get to have.
So this is from a book called Brideland by Naomi Wolf.
Okay.
Brideland. It is a theme park of upward mobility. In Brideland, in the events surrounding the event, everyone is temporarily upper middle class. Everyone routinely throws catered events and hires musicians and sends engraved invitations and keeps carriages or vintage cars awaiting. At the ceremony itself, things become downright feudal. The bride is treated like a very queen with her court of maids. She has perhaps a child to lift her train, a child to bear her ring, and a sparkling tiara upon her hair. Cinderella is revealed in her true aristocratic radiance at last, and in the magazines she is perpetually arriving at the ball. Brideland has very little to do with the relationship or even the marriage. It is, like any theme park, eternally transient. You enter, you are transformed completely, and then, presumably, you depart.
You take a picture at the
End
climax
quote.
as well.
Yeah.
You're coming
To
down with your
remember
big
it.
old foot.
And in all these trend pieces about, weddings of right now, they're all about setting up the Instagram shot for all the guests. Where events, where opportunities to take amazing photos have replaced favors that you give to your guests, and that's where all the expense goes into, and into weird and unique food.
An Instagrammable moment, meaning something to make your wedding go viral, not a picture of your wedding party that's like viral. Those people are attractive. You mean a gimmick, something that happens at the wedding
Something
that
that
people
you can give to your
put
guests
on-
where they'll be glad to share it on Instagram, and they're
Yeah.
going to be so happy and proud.
So you can. That's definitely something. The whole idea of a hashtag for events.
But this is what is sort of
That's been
always
around for a
this
while,
is
though.
what has always bothered me about weddings, and I do like weddings, but what's always bothered me, and I feel sort of like Spencer Tracy, is one, I don't know anything about them, and so when I'm like, it costs what? And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's totally reasonable cost. I don't see how everybody else acts. Everybody acts like they have all the adequate training to know how to do all of this stuff, when in reality, most people are only going to put on one wedding. Right? But they sort of act like this is something they do all the time.
Well, it might be in the preparation, because if you're really into the idea of a big wedding, you're probably going to be engaged for like a year and a half. So there's so much run up to it that you become sort of an expert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's an obsession.
And you see everybody else putting on weddings, including people who you don't know what their financial situation is, but you just assume, well, if they can do it, then I can do it, and I'll be fine.
Right.
And they're fine, when maybe all of us are not fine.
You're reminding me of something. In preparation for the wedding that I had before you, the only one, I remember any wedding I went to while I was in that phase, I wasn't there to enjoy myself. I was there to like critique. I was there to like see what I had to beat, or it was just more like, I wasn't like taking notes like I'm going to do that. It was just like, they better not have thought of the thing I thought of. Okay, good.
What was the thing you thought of?
Oh, I don't even fucking know anymore. It's just like, just there to spot check. Like, no. Okay, this will be new at my wedding.
Yeah. I feel
no one thought of the hot swamp idea in July with broken fans. My big brilliant idea for all the men in the tuxes and me. I had butt sweat in my shoe.
I do feel too smug about us not having a wedding, because when we didn't.
Oh, you
when
mean proud of yourself.
Lacey and I married each other, we went to a justice of the peace, and like to this day, I'm like, oh, I didn't have a wedding.
Our party was perfect.
We had the best wedding. Let's tell the story.
Please.
Do you remember when I got down on one knee?
No, that didn't happen. You have arthritic knees.
No, so yeah, that would be hard. That would be difficult. I would then need assistance getting back up.
It's less romantic.
But I didn't propose. I don't even think
we proposed to each other. We just said
no. We just kind of like decided.
My lease was up.
No, I think it was you were living in an apartment with Macy, who was 2 years old. You were living in an apartment in New Orleans that had roaches.
It had roaches.
And you wanted to get out of the lease early, and I wanted to get out of the lease early so we could move in together. And then we decided we should be married.
We had to get married because I have a daughter from another wedding.
Well, you don't have to do that.
I know, but just
it was like it seems like I'm committed.
Unseemly.
Earlier in our relationship, I'd been like, I will never get married. It's stupid. Why do I need a contract? Why do I need to get married to? We had this conversation back then.
I remember that.
Do you remember when you convinced me that if we ever got married, I would wear a ring? Because I said, I will never do that. You're not going to brand me.
How were we dating? I don't remember. No. All I remember is the result, which is
I got a ring on now. Yeah. But so we just like sort of made a business decision. We'll get married. I called the justice of the peace. I was like, when are you available? And they're like, Wednesday. And I was like, okay. And then we went to my parents' house, and I said, so we're gonna get married. And they're like, okay, what?
They're like, no.
And that was So, but we went to the justice of the peace.
Cool story.
Thank you.
So far.
So we went to the justice of the peace. And my parents were there, and your mom and stepdad were there, and my brother and sister, and Macy. And we got married to a John Goodman-esque judge. I mean, he married us. We didn't get
married to him.
He married us. We didn't get married
of him.
To him.
What was great about it is that I had like zero preparation. I did not stress about it at all. I thought of it as being really low key and like you can wear jeans. So the fact that I wore a dress, I was like, I am so on top of this shit. And it just worked out. I had no expectations at all because I'd never seen one. I'd never been to one. I wasn't going to try and tell stories about it. There was no pressure. Mm-hmm. It just ended up being elegant and perfect.
Yeah. And then
we had steak.
We went to eat at a steakhouse.
Yeah.
It was great.
And then we had a whole month to just plan a fucking
the night we got married, I then dropped you off at your apartment and I went back to my apartment. We didn't live together right away. We were married for a little while without living together.
Well, they used to sleep in separate beds on movies.
We are very
in
old-fashioned.
1950, so we slept in different domiciles.
Yeah. And then we had a party like a month later.
Which is why on the anniversary, our first anniversary, I was a month off from when our anniversary was to
that's
take
why.
place. That is why. I have explained this to you so many times. In my head, it was April.
Well, we didn't have the party in April either. It was in
That's
May.
not true.
It was May 4th.
Well, fuck.
May the 4th be with you. Whatever. Fire the Bride 2. This is a movie 4 years later. Same people are back. This time, Haley, whatever, Kimberly Williams is pregnant, and Steve Martin's like, "You're pregnant? Oh my god!" And then Diane Keaton also gets pregnant, but she's old.
Oh my god, again.
And this is a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty
It
charming.
is. It's totally cute and completely unrealistic.
It has very little to do with the first movie. It is wealth
Just Frank.
porn. Steve Martin sells his house, but then immediately decides he wants to buy it back, so he writes a check. And he's like, "I'll have to get a loan to pay for this." And you're like, "Oh, okay. Hope you're okay." And
Hope my 750 credit score will cut it.
Martin Short has a much bigger role, even though there's no wedding to be planned. They kind of shoehorn him in,
But
but
it's got Martin Short. Oh, right.
yeah, Frank.
It's Steve Martin Short. It's
And
he's the best part of the fucking movie.
he's
It's
I
fantastic.
like him. He
Him
does
and
not
George's relationship,
belong at
I
all.
love.
He is, again, what if Garth from Wayne's World was Steve Martin's friend?
Again, for all the girls who needed wedding porn and like good father-daughter relationship porn, that damn writer knew they were going to need baby planning porn. There was no reason for Frank to design a wing of anything inside of an apartment, which is what Annie and her husband can afford. So the mom has to get pregnant because he needs to build baby porn. Okay, you can't. That didn't work. You know what I mean? That nursery is like, it's like.
And you know they're never going to use that.
Right.
Like nothing.
Where's the rock and play? That's gonna
There's
go right
nothing
by my-
that you'll never use less than whatever you plan for the baby before the baby is
right.
born.
And at the point that you start actually using that room, it's going to be to the stage where that kid's going to start redecorating everything you just did. So
Yeah, because up until then, it's going to be the hormonal, depressing room of sadness.
exactly where you drain
This
your
is
boobs
where I
and
wasn't able to
feelings.
sleep, and I shot hormones out of my tits all the time. I'm talking about me.
Both of us, yeah.
Yeah, and but not a great movie, not a bad movie. I enjoyed it. Diane Keaton has a lot more to do, although she kind of vanishes from the movie halfway. Once again, I'm
'Cause pregnant people
making
vanish.
believe the movie that doesn't exist. But if Nancy Meyer had directed this movie and Diane Keaton had been the main character, not Steve Martin, it
Yeah.
would be a much more interesting movie. An older woman who's pregnant and pregnant at the same time as the daughter. But the daughter's so understanding. There's no conflict, even though there totally would be. Of course there would be.
It's like fuck her for stealing her moment.
Yeah.
You've already had me. One upper.
Boy, I did enjoy it, and yet all of my thoughts were about the first movie. I can barely remember this. I remember there's a very competent doctor who delivers the baby, and the actress portraying the doctor was a really realistic portrayal of an obstetrician.
And they named the baby after her, which I always like that too, even though I don't like the name Megan per se.
Really, I like the name Megan.
It's fine. It's a solid name.
So you went from I don't like the name Megan to
I
solid
don't
name.
want to alienate any of our Megan listeners.
Oh.
So.
Love you, Meg.
Hey.
So yes, I did enjoy this one a lot more. What did you enjoy about it when you were a kid? Just same shit?
All the
Aspirational
stuff,
porn?
Yep. All the stuff to look at. All the things I would never have, but maybe. They made it look so fun.
Let me ask you something.
Tell me.
Do you believe that?
I believe what?
Do you actually think that's what you were like?
What else could it have been?
Well,
I
don't
thought
know,
they were
kids
showing me
like
what it
shitty
was like to
movies.
be a grown up, and yeah, it was nice to look at, pleasant characters, no conflict. It was, it was, what am I trying to say? A nice light movie that doesn't make you think.
Like a nice hot bath.
Ew.
Like take a Xanax and
No, I don't
get
know.
into the tub
You
with a
need
glass
something
of
on.
Pinot. You need something on.
I've always had to have the TV on in every room that I'm in, and you kind of took that out of me a little bit, which I'm glad, but it's still sort of what I do.
And so this might as well be on.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
that's stuff I got to really think about.
All right, I think we nailed it.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, so yeah, follow us on Twitter, Load Bearing Pod. It's our Twitter handle. Please subscribe, rate and review and subscribe on iTunes.
If you like it, just share the episode on your Facebook, please. Fucking hell. Be a friend. Be
See,
a
like
relative.
I've never heard people talk about movies from their childhood. I've never heard people talk about movies from the 90s. Oh my God, listen right now. Say that.
Or just, Zium God. How about Father of the Bride? You remember? Oh my God, you feel free to quote me there. That came out so good.
Father of the Bride, you remember?
Yeah.
I remember.
Remember? I told you I wouldn't quote Frank one more time, and I didn't.
Good job.
Thanks.
All right. I'm Matt Stokes.
I'm Lacey Roth.
Telling you to
Kiss off.
have very nice weddings. Everyone get
Bye.
married. Get married to each other in holy matrimony. No premarital sex.
Go into the chapel and are gonna get married. Feel free to use that.
Oh, what about My Girl? The song My Girl.
What about it?
I don't know. It just, of course, is in this movie, and he's like, my daddy daughter.
Oh, this song. I thought I was like, why are we bringing up this theme? Yeah, we already determined that one sucks.
I'm not dancing with my daddy daughter. All right.
Yeah.
Bye, people.
3, 4. Everybody, love me.